question related to this issue of how can we trust what's being said. And I guess it's asking a question about transmission to some extent, the transmission of the New Testament. Someone's asked very helpfully and said that you stated in your first hour that the church put the Bible together. And given that most denominations have emerged in the last 500 years, which church put the Bible together, and why should we trust its authority?
Right.
And so I think my question is for someone who might go and pick up a Bible and try and investigate some of the claims that you've been talking about, can they actually trust what's written in the pages of the Bible?
It was the early Catholic Church that assembled these books around 325 AD. About 300 years after Christ, these books were collected into the pages of the New Testament. And the church left out all of these forged apocryphal gospels, things like the Gospel of Peter, the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Bartholomew. These forged documents only arose during the second half of the 2nd century after Christ, and then the 3rd century and beyond. So everybody knew they were fakes. By contrast, the 4 Gospels all come from the 1st century, the century in which Jesus lived and died, and they were written down and distributed within the lifetime of the eyewitnesses. So there's this huge gap between these original 4 Gospels and then these apocryphal Gospels, which only began to arise during the second half of the 2nd century after Christ, which were based upon the 4 Gospels and draw upon them and then elaborate on them in all sorts of ways with Gnostic teachings and legends and so forth. And you can read these today. These are widely available. There's nobody's hiding them. But well, I shouldn't say nobody, but sensible historical scholars regard these as, I say, secondary, derivative, and less reliable sources, and therefore they're not really taken seriously as primary sources for the life of Jesus. In fact, one of the points that I skipped in my opening lecture was on the simplicity of Mark's account of the empty tomb. And I like to contrast it with the story of the empty tomb found in the Gospel of Peter, one of these forgeries from the second half of the 2nd century after Christ, where, it is so hilarious. Jesus comes out of the tomb sitting on the shoulders of the angels, of 2 angels that have gone in to get him, and the heads of the angels reach up to the clouds. Jesus' head reaches up beyond the clouds, this gigantic figure, and then a cross comes out of the tomb behind them, and a voice from heaven says, "Hast thou preached to them that sleep?" And the cross answers, "Yea." Now, these are how real legends look. You see, they're colored by all sorts of theological motifs and apologetical motifs that are conspicuously lacking from Mark's account, which is stark in its simplicity.